Thailand bounces back, the China rebound. I'm David Johnson, CEO of Delivering Asia Communications. COVID-19 has devastated our industry, the hospitality industry in Thailand and across the world. But today, we want to focus on the positives and we want to get ready for recovery. Internationally, we believe this is going to come from China. And in collaboration with C9 Hotelworks, we prepared the China-Thailand Travel Sentiment Survey to give us some pointers. So we're going to be going through that today. And I would just like to give a few pointers, a few housekeeping points just before we kick off. The session will run for 30 minutes and there'll be 2 short presentations followed by Q&A. Please type your questions into the Q&A function and we'll get to as many of them as we can. And the last thing is that we will send the presentation and the recorded webinar to all 572 who've registered today. So let's get going. First up is C9 Hotelworks founder and managing director, Bill Barnett. Bill.
Hi guys, and welcome to Phuket. Actually, I'm here. I've actually been out for a game of basketball. I'm waiting for the bounce. I mean, that's what everybody's asking, what's next? And I think when we undertake the research and everything, you know, for the China market, we're trying to understand what hoteliers can now look forward to. I think too many hotels have been kind of mired in desperation and everything else. We understand it's desperate times. Livelihoods, the tourism economy in Thailand, you know, 12 to 14% of GDP. Probably travel and tourism with the expanded service economy in Thailand is about 20%. So it's a key issue as well. And I think something we always point out is that tourism is the face of Thailand. It's the economic face, it's the source of pride for the Thai people, and it's a global brand. So it's very important for us to, in terms of tourism, saying, what do we think is going to happen next? Now, when we undertook the survey, I think there were some guidelines we kind of looked at. You know, we concentrate on first-tier cities. We did a number of first-tier cities across China. It wasn't just in Shanghai, it wasn't just in Beijing. It was a selection of first-tier cities across the country, and also qualified travelers. So we're not looking at 16-year-olds who are on WeChat or something else. These are qualified travelers who we put this question to. I think one important thing about the research is, in terms of our methodology, is that these people who are responding are also going to be the people who, you know, when they say they're probably going to come to Thailand, you know, these are the early responders. So I think in terms of travel patterns and everything else, these are the pioneers, you know, for lack of another word, who were the first people to start traveling after COVID-19, and these are the pioneers. So that sentiment is not necessarily going to be the case 2 years from now or 3 years from now as we get through a cycle, but certainly for now, these are the pioneers we've been focusing on. I think some of our key takeaway points we learned from the study was that, you know, the popularity of Thai destinations. I think there weren't a lot of surprises for us. I think the one thing perhaps with Phuket being number 2, you know, we're all aware of the boat sinking incident in 2018, the damage that was done to the market. But I think something that's it's important with destinations is that we think that after COVID-19, there's going to be more of a sense for travelers to be less adventurous and taking on to what's known. And they'll be responding to known brands. And when we look at Bangkok, when we look at Chiang Mai, when we look at Phuket as well, the Lost in Thailand certainly story, which bolstered Chiang Mai. Certainly there's a preference towards the known destinations. I think that's certainly for the pioneers who are coming in the market, they're going to gravitate towards those locations. It was interesting about the booking channels as well with Ctrip, Fliggy, hotel websites, booking.com and WeChat also. I think another case was the trip budget. 50% of those was about $2,100 per person for a spend in Thailand. Now to frame our discussion today, you know, 2019, 11 million Chinese travelers visited Thailand, you know, almost 11 million. That's a big portion. That's nearly a third of all international arrivals into the country. So that's a big number. So when we're looking at a rebound or restart of the economy, fish where the fish are. That's what the focus of the study is. You know, I think going through, and again, what was interesting to us, again, because certain people aren't ready to travel. Again, when we look at the pioneers, we saw about 53% of Chinese travelers who were willing to travel abroad. So that sets the scenario today where we're sitting and saying 53% people think it's okay, not necessarily take a domestic holiday or a staycation for the rest of the year, but they have an appetite for adventuring into other countries. So there is demand there. And I've been reading a lot under today in the Bangkok Post, there's an article about saying the Chinese necessarily don't know about returning. But again, the people we've spoken to, over 50% are saying they would like to travel abroad. So that's interesting. And again, when we go back to which months they'd like to travel in, certainly August, because it's a traditional summer month. July, August typically are high months for Chinese in Thailand. October with the national holidays, and certainly in December leading up into January, February for Chinese New Year. It's important to look at this because we say, what's the new normal and all cycles will stop. I don't believe that. I think that's an absolute fallacy because COVID-19 is the beginning of a new cycle. And traditional cycles in resort markets and other markets are determined by public holidays. They're determined by seasons. They're determined by rain. They're determined by a lot of other factors. But we think the cycles will come back into Thailand post-19. There is a new norm and there's new protocol, but we think we're back into a new cycle starting in probably by June of this year. And we're going to see cyclical patterns emerge again in Thailand. I think when we look at the preference, we go back to the preference, where would you travel in Thailand? I think, what resonates with me is the top 3 account for the lion's shares of the market. If we look at Koh Samui, certainly we understand that Koh Samui has had issues in terms of it's a single air carrier going in there with Bangkok Airways. Bangkok Airways, after 2018, they started to reduce flights to China because they had low capacity. Certainly after the China economy was slowing down, everything else, there was a response to airlift. So these destinations certainly are our response to airlift as well. So the vast focus was really on 3 markets there. I think it's interesting to go again where we stay. Where do you prefer to stay? And again, traditional patterns are that Chinese would like to stay in hotels, 72%. So it's still a large portion, but 28% for Airbnbs and non-alternative accommodation. This is a trend we're seeing more, especially with multi-generation travelers from China. You've got grandma, you've got the kids coming, you've got the relatives coming. We are seeing more Chinese who would book villas and hotels as well with multiple bedrooms, but also who would look at alternative accommodation. This pattern is going to continue because friends and family travel and multi-generational travel, we think will even eclipse through COVID-19, and we will see this pattern evolving again. And going backwards, I think this statistic also is important to look at it for face value because understand these were the first respondents saying that 83% would want to come as independent travelers, okay? We think that number will be lower perhaps 3 months from now or 6 months from now when we see more of the mass market. But again, this was the first wave. This is 53% of people who are responding they'd like to travel abroad. So I think, really what we understand from certain feedback from China wholesalers they are seeing people attracted to smaller group travel and also to FIT travel. So those are the channels which are going to be opening first, okay? It's not necessarily demonstrated of the broad marketplace where we're still going to see mass tourism. If we have 11 million people, we're not going to see 11 million people traveling as FITs. It would be presumptuous to say that all Chinese now are becoming FIT travelers. We know the market's becoming more mature, but we also understand that fundamentally it's the wholesale driven business which drives China. And that's still going to be a case for the next few years. I think going on, in terms of channels, certainly C-Trip is a big influence in the market. We're seeing Fliggy also come up, which is connected to Alibaba. It was interesting to see this many with hotel websites. What that says is that there's a potential to unleash business in this market as well. WeChat, Agoda, we've got others, in terms of that. So again, these are channels which are very defined to China as well. When we're looking at Fliggy, we're looking at C-Trip, we're looking at WeChat. Certainly they're very focused on the China market. I think once we go back to the respondent profile, again, this gives us kind of a selection about where most of the people are. And we're saying, that 65% are employees of companies. They could be managers, they could be supervisors. I think that's important. But when we look at the gender distribution here on the chart, it's good to see pretty much that 20 to 40 market is really defining a broad segment. So that's important to understand. 20 to 40 is a broad age group, but that's where the people are coming from. I think it's interesting to see about the spending power. There's always the perception that Chinese don't spend money. And certainly in terms of the spend per trip, this is a good spend per trip. And again, They're going to be flying direct. It's quite a consolidated thing. So I think this is interesting that actually it's not as bad as we think in terms of we're not back to zero bot tourism. You know, thank God. So certainly there's going to be a crunch on value and value offerings. But again, there's no need for hotels to throw down rate necessarily because there are people out there with money who will spend. So I think that's always one of the dangers of, you know, the first response of hotels is let's drop rates, let's drop rates, let's drop rates. I think as we go on, certainly in terms of you're looking at the markets around the country, again, Bangkok certainly, Phuket's important, Chiang Mai is important. Again, when we talk about some other destinations like Khao Lak, there was an impact. Phuket, after 2018, after the mid-2018 boat sinking, never quite recovered the Chinese numbers they need. And that's interesting because, you know, I'm going to talk about that a little because, you know, in China, you don't have Facebook, you don't have Twitter, you've got Weibo. And Weibo, certainly, when you look at about Phuket's reputation, Thailand's reputation, online, it's not sterling. You know, there is a perception. And, you know, today we're talking about hygiene and we're talking safety. If we go back to 2018 and hoteliers say, what can we do about brand Thailand? Let's start talking about safety and security of travelers because this story didn't start in COVID-19. This story started in 2018 when we had a boat sinking and the perception amongst Chinese was, Thailand was not a safe place to come. So I think when we talk about reestablishing the private and the public sector, safety and security are more of a brand value than ever. That's a really key point. I think when we look at the future outlook, airlift is everything. You know, you can't stay there if you can't get there. When we say, why is China going to come back early is because the propensity with the low-cost carriers who can fly to Thailand door to door, be it Chiang Mai, be it to Phuket, be it to Pattaya, be it to other destinations, Don Muang, it's door-to-door travel. So somebody who's going to get on an airplane, they're going to say, do I want to spend 2 or 3 hours in the air or 4 hours coming to Thailand, or do I want to spend 11 hours? Again, these guys are pioneers, but they're thinking they want a no-one destination. They want something where it's a shorter time in the air as well. But low-cost airlines generally are able to react much quicker than legacy airlines to airlift. And that's when we say, why is China going to come back earlier? Because the low-cost carriers can start up routes a lot faster than people like Thai Airways or national carriers. So there's a lot more flexibility in that structure. We also think currency is a big issue because currency, certainly in third and fourth quarter of 2019, we saw the Chinese currency trade war talks. We saw China slow down. It became less favorable. We saw a climb back over the past few months and it's flattening out, but there certainly is an appreciation against the Thai baht, so there's more value. So in terms of Thailand being, why is Thailand competitive with Vietnam or other destinations? The currency is becoming more attractive and currency is an issue. I think oil prices, you know, are important to this whole conundrum. You know, when we talk about oil prices leading to deflation and other things, oil prices are not necessarily bad as part of a tourism recovery when we have lower oil prices because airfares can be kept cheaper. And I think that's going to be, again, it's airlift, which is important. And something which is a non-tangible that necessarily isn't reflected here is the fear factor. And people say the fear factor, what's the new norm? And I dismiss this new norm talk completely because one thing we understand is we can learn from history. If you look at 9/11, nobody wanted to fly after 9/11, right? Back in the United States, everybody in the world has to take their shoes off in an airport today, right? That's still the case. So there was a protocol, the protocol worked, and after 9/11, people still got on airplanes. So my question back is when people say the travel business is finished or something else, I look back at 9/11 and I understood, yeah, we took our shoes off, but we still got on the airplane, and that's more profound than ever. So I've got to believe that that's important. And I think certainly these distribution channels, when we look at things, you know, it's an interesting discussion today because what we want to understand is how can we reach out to customers and who are going to be the early responders back in the market. So I think that's quite important. I think maybe to conclude, really, when we talked about the post-COVID-19 traveler, I'm sorry, I read articles every day about conjecture. I read blogs. I read that they're going to do this. Nobody's going to have, people will have room service. People aren't going to go to a breakfast buffet. You're not going to change people intrinsically. I think you're going to have a fear factor, certainly as we saw after 9/11, and people are going to want to have that a safer experience, and they'll want to be assured. Brand Thailand and our hotel brands need to address this as a matter of priority and commute it not only in English, but to Chinese, to Russians, to other nationalities. Understand we have a multicultural customer base now and understand the needs. I don't think you can say that everybody in the world is going to change their travel patterns or their hotel patterns. I think you have to look deeper than that. You have to look at the traits of the individual geographic source of business and think what's going to be important to them in the value system as well. Because what we know from the past is that, again, the China market for many still is a veil of the unknown, because when we look at things in English, you know, we're looking at 11 million travelers. We don't really know who those travelers were. We don't know what motivated them to do. That's why it's worth a greater dive. If we're talking, you know, as I said, almost 1/3 of the business coming to Thailand, this is worth a deep dive. That's why we focused on China. And people said with this study is, why would we start talking about this, you know, in terms of that, you know, and really, you know, again, fish where the fish are, because we think that certainly for long haul travel, it's going to go on the sidelines for a while and it's going to be more difficult. What we don't know from today, and that question keeps arising, is when are the Chinese going to come? There's no restrictions in the market right now where Chinese can't travel abroad. Okay, there's a restriction if they come back in the country, that there's quarantine. There's an issue if they come to Thailand, there's a quarantine as well. So it's the quarantine issue, it's not the travel restrictions where they can't travel abroad. And those are the levers. What's the levers of seeing the Chinese market come in? You know, in terms of that, that's really important. So I think, you know, we have to understand that. And I think, again, when we talk about travel restrictions, let's talk about that point. But I'm going to hand over now to David and Vanessa, and actually, we're going to learn more about the China market. David?
Bill, thanks very much, Bill. That's fantastic and very insightful. Take a breath.
I've got the ball. It's okay. I've got the ball.
Okay, good. We'll play with that for a while.
Be the ball.
We've had a lot of questions David, coming in.
I've only got one ball though, so that's okay. So I can only play with one ball.
Okay, you can't throw it over here then.
Okay.
We've had a lot of questions coming in, and I'm going to get to those in just a moment, just after Vanessa. We've also had a lot of comments while Bill was speaking regarding, will people get copies of the presentation? Yes, you will. There's 572 people who've been registered. Everyone will get an email link to the presentation and a link to the recording of today's session. So that's all good. Just quickly, let's not forget that the China obviously was in lockdown first. China's been locked down, was just coming out of lockdown for having been locked down for about 3 months. Shopping malls are open, banks and businesses are open, hotels. Even just 2 weeks ago, they were running at single digits. They're now running in 20s, even early 30% occupancies. So things are changing in that regard. They're changing on the ground. But what is interesting is that consumer behavior has changed. And I'd like to introduce you to Vanessa Zhu, who's our director in China, in our Shanghai office, delivering communications, just to give us a few more insights on the changing consumer behavior. Vanessa.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa from Shanghai, and it's a great opportunity to share about some interesting finding about this, what the COVID did for us here. So yes, early this year, we've been all completely locking down at home for about at least 1 month. So right now, I'm from Shanghai, so the whole city has been opened up. And I have on the 8th of April, the city of Wuhan has been completely unlocked as well. So I have to say that right now, the entire country has been unlocked. So people start to getting back to their life generally. And there's just something very interesting happened. For example, our survey shows 82% of travelers, the age actually is below 40 years old. And 43 of them, actually the age is between 20 and 30s. So for those kind of people, they were young and they were passionate and they were devastated want to going out. So, and 83% of them actually prefer to travel independently rather than going to an agency, join to a travel group. So I have to say, during the current situation, travel is for young people, not really for senior person. And the second finding is interesting, actually, is the travel experience. So for example, many people has been locked at home. They want to experience something differently because they're getting bored to eat local food, to having a local entertainment experience. Therefore, to experience going to a neighbor country seeing the different culture, to do different activity, something you can't do here. For example, people living in a land city wants to go to beach side, lying there, getting the suntan, for example, to do some activities to feel alive, to see some scenic view. All of these to make them feel different, to get some fresh air, feel fresh, is one of the very important point. And among all of these, I will say shopping is still important, but the priority will be lowering down. And another thing is interesting is because majority of the traveler willing to travel will be in, the age will be much younger, for example, which means that actually they were born with the internet. During the lockdown, everyone stays at home. So internet really saved all of us, which means they at home doing, not doing nothing, but holding the phone or the laptop all time, which means they also gain a lot of information about destination they want to travel, the food, the local food they want to taste, the restaurant they want to go to, saved in their shopping list or the to-do list. Therefore, the young people is totally dedicated to digital. So they have whole bunch of saved wanting to do list in their phone. So these are three very interesting findings we discovered through the survey. And now I would like to discuss about as a hotel and also has people working in the hospitality industry. What should we do to getting ready, to expecting them when they're coming back? First, I think is social, but distancing. We all know about social distance. We're being social distance everywhere. However, to travel, to have a holiday, it means we want to see people. We want to be in crowded, but with distance. Therefore, I think it's a very important for hotel or resort or restaurant to make people feel that we are social, entertainable, but with precaution and safety distance. I think that is one of the solution. And the other part I would like to talk about actually is healthy and hygiene. I have to say, in senior people's mind, it sounds a little bit risky to travel first, but for young people, they believe with certain knowledge, with certain precaution, travel is not an impossible thing. They would like to enjoy the life as much as possible. So it is important for hotel and restaurant to have a good health and hygiene precautions. So make people feel relaxed and feel comfortable, and they don't. If this can be achieved, then people don't mind to spend more money.
Thanks,
And
Vanessa.
the other thing is,
yeah, go on, carry on.
yeah, and the other thing actually I think is the hotel reopening. Right now, people gain a lot of news actually is saying that a lot of hotel has been temporarily closed in Thailand. I think it's important to announce the reopen of the hotel and a restaurant with the precaution about how we provide hygiene and safety. So to gain the awareness of customer in China.
That's excellent. So how let's just go on to the next one. So how I understand that there's some new tools in the market. Bill talked about them briefly. There's Fliggy, there's Alipay, there's TikTok. Do you just want to just talk very briefly about some of these new channels? Because as I understand it, hotels really do need to start engaging in new channels and new digital and having new digital tools so that they can reach the new traveler that you're talking about.
Yes. Okay. So here I would like to talk about Fliggy. So Fliggy actually is the tourism section of Taobao, which is owned by the Alibaba. Taobao is the biggest, almost the only online shopping platform right now in China. And then Taobao as a liaison with the thing called Alipay, which is the biggest international payment system for Chinese travelers overseas. And also it's like everyone, almost every single Chinese people will have an Alipay. So this is how we're living right now in China. We go everywhere. We do electronic pay. We swipe we use Alipay to swipe the code, and then just to do it, and then the payment is gone. So the moment you scan the code, and then next second, the shopper will receive the money immediately. So as people outside of China, probably is first time here Fliggy. Why? Is because majority of the people, if we look at the big data, people knows about Ctrip. However, for younger people, especially for FIT, they really jumping on Fliggy right now. One is because younger people tend to spend more time on Taobao, and then also Alibaba supported about Fliggy a lot. So Fliggy in last 2 years has been widely spreaded among Chinese population. So what's the difference between Fliggy and the Ctrip? Let's make a quick example. So if we say that Ctrip is a department store, so you will see products actually has been designed by the agency, or the hotel room actually is listed by the agency, and then behind the agency, then there's Ctrip. But however, Fliggy is more like shopping mall. So you have your own store on the Fliggy platform. So each hotel can open their own online shop on the Fliggy platform. And if me, I'm the end user, I can just jump on the Fliggy website and I say search hotel, the particular hotel I want to stay, and then boom, there's a room, and then as I book the date, and then I scan a code, payment go, and then the hotel receive immediately. So that's it's a sales channel. Yeah, the sales channel is far more direct. And because I think this platform is more suited for FIT traveler.
So it's
and
a
also
quick,
for younger
so
people as well.
So Fliggy in particular is a key tool for hotels to have. They can get to the hotels can get to market quickly, and they can appeal to this this new demographic of traveler you're talking about. So, can you talk to us briefly about one of the key social media channels that's emerged?
Yes. So here is TikTok. TikTok has a Chinese. I mean, internationally it's called TikTok, but it has a Chinese name, actually called Douyin. So Douyin is it's an app based on mobile phone, and it contains tons of videos. Video like a photo. It can be like a video clip. At the beginning, it was like a 15 seconds, but right now you can provide up to 3 minutes content. And also it has function about live streaming. And then the most important thing is right now, the TikTok, the Douyin actually you can insert the online shop link there. There's a certain link you could insert in. So during the lockdown time, everyone is stay at home, they cannot go out. So what they do is like they use mobile phone a lot to just swap to see different video contents. So it's like you see this video content talking about this product, you like the product, and then you click, and then it results the sales. That's simple, easy like that. And there's many ways to do the content. It can be funny, it also can be interesting, and it also can be some end up user talking about, oh, I really like this product. And then it's kind of gain the attention from the customer as well. So it has been really, yeah.
No, I mean, it's certainly a channel that used to be used by young teens, 12, 13, 14-year-olds, just doing dances in front of their phones, but now it's really exploded, and is a key direct to market tool. So it's very interesting the way it's changed. Let me get, we're getting a lot of questions, so I just wanted to let's just go back to maybe the opening slide, and just to address some of them while we've still got a few minutes. We're going to run over by 10 minutes. And we're not going to get to all the questions, I'm afraid, but all of the questions that have been answered, we will answer them by email if we can't get to them. So just that. Bill, you mentioned one question on restriction. We know there's no restriction of outbound travel from China, but do we know when the quarantine restrictions are going to be lifted for both China and Thailand?
Well, let me think. I mean, nobody knows that answer right now. And I think anybody in the world right now, we understand that the quarantines are the mechanism. Those are the levers in terms of what's going to happen. What we do understand also is from a practical standpoint, we understand the economic pressure. And I think the economic pressure, we're eventually, what we're seeing now is we're seeing, for better or worse, and I always advocate safety first, hygiene first, open markets when they're safe. We're by no means saying rush to market. Today is not about rushing to market. It's about a practical approach towards the reopening, strategic and in its right time. But we also understand that governments are taking control of COVID-19 and the economies versus the scientific process. And so what we understand is the pressure on the governments with the low-cost carriers, with the airlines, with the hotels as well. So our belief is that the governments, here in Thailand, we're seeing dates given out for the opening of domestic flights already. We're, in terms of Phuket, in terms of Bangkok, we're seeing dates being given. If the airports are opening, again, it goes back to airlift. Look at airlift as a key change maker for how this crisis is going to be addressed as part of recovery. And if they're giving dates for airports to open, it's logical that hotels will be opening and that the quarantine restriction will start to move out. We know the orderly process. We know that Thailand has to bring back overseas Thais back in the country first, and we understand that there'll be domestic travel, but international travel is coming. It is coming back again, and again, it's the sheer economic impact of that. And that's what we think is going to drive that process. So we believe that's going to be, by June, we're going to start seeing these quarantines being pragmatically with protocols. We're going to see health certificates. We're going to see other requirements. And again, it goes back to 9/11. We're going to have to take our shoes off at the airport. What's the new protocol for this? But again, that didn't stop things, and airlift continued through that time period. I think we're going to see a similar trajectory. It's not going to be a straight U shape, but certainly it's going to be a longer term trajectory. But we are going to see a pragmatic return to international travel over June, July, and August.
So new protocols. What are the key things that hotels should be doing in Thailand then to prepare for the Chinese traveler that we're discussing at the moment? One is obviously they need to be able to respond to the new protocols. And in terms of health, what should some of those things be? Just got any tips for hotels, Bill?
I think you've got to look, and this is Chinese language. We're saying again, what you see you may feel good about your Facebook likes, you may feel good about your TripAdvisor in English, but there's 11 million people, there's 11 million customers coming from China to Thailand that you don't know anything about. You don't know what they're talking about. You don't know what they're talking online about. You don't know your reputation, nor do you know their value system. So invest in that. Understand that this is a different market. Not every market is equal. So you've got to understand is what are those triggers and what's important. Safety and security, again, we've seen, after the boat sinking, we'd go to Weibo and see the reputation of Thailand being blisterly downgraded in terms of what people were talking about. So we have to go back and give people a sense of security. The pioneers will come, but these pioneers are cautious pioneers. They're going to want to feel, after what's happened in China, we have to provide a mechanism where they can have safety. We've seen the TAT this past week talk about having a safety and health administration, whereby they're going to do protocols with the private sector. And this is a good thing, again, because they're talking about tourism establishments and everybody else having certifications. But I think what hoteliers can do now is pragmatically start to plan towards the recovery.
We're talking about some of the new access tools that the hotels can consider for the market, and they take time to set up. Fleggy, for example, is minimum 1 month. It can be as long as 3. There's processes to go through, and I think it's important for hotels to understand that, to set up these sorts of accounts. I saw something came through about fees on Fleggy commission. I'm going to get back to that with a direct answer. Vanessa, just tell me a little bit more about TikTok. I've seen a number of things come in about TikTok. The rise in TikTok has been great. Tell me a little bit about the TikTok influencers. I understand this is a new breed of influencer that we've not really seen so much before.
I have to say that TikTok right now really is kind of like all age user. So even start from kids to all like even senior people, as long as you have a smartphone, people to look at TikTok. That's the new discovering or the new habits that people having right now.
That's great. Okay, thanks. That was just there was just one question. Someone's asked something about airlines. I mean, what can airlines do? I mean, you've got to, if you can't get it, you can't do the door-to-door that Bill's talking about. You know, it's not going to be effective. What can airlines do to ensure that travelers have the confidence to travel again? Bill?
I mean, we can see that already in, you know, in Thailand, we've got the first adopters, Thai Air Asia and Vietjet. They're all, with Thai Lion Air, they're talking already about having social distancing, taking out the middle seat on airplanes, everything else. They're planning for this already. That's why I'm saying, in some ways, the airlines, look to the airlines how they're doing this, because they're already planning this, because they're already taking reservations for May for flights domestically within Thailand. So there's protocols coming again. It's going to be, you know, for me, it's more for the airport experience. I think where Thailand has to be vital is to make sure, again, it goes back to taking your shoes off at the airport. For Chinese travelers, when they arrive at the airport, what is the new protocol? Is it a health certificate? Is there clarity in communication, what you need, how you travel from the airport, how seamlessly you go through that airport experience? That's the gateway. You know, that's probably the most important part of the experience. So I think that's something which is still a little unknown. But with the airlines, we're seeing this already. You know, we're seeing social distancing. We're seeing masks. We're seeing they're not serving food. And this goes back to the whole thing is, why is interregional travel going to be important? Is because it's door to door. It's a shorter flight. You don't have to necessarily eat on the airplane. So this fits within that kind of protocol.
That's great. Thanks. We're getting quite a few questions too about guests. What type of guests should hotels target? What customer segments do you think will be most attracted to Thailand first? I know the survey data told us that it's younger. It's below 40. It's between 20 and 30. I've also seen a lot of research on female travelers, solo travelers, very small groups of friends travelers. Vanessa, what sort of travelers do you think will be coming through first up? Your first pioneering travelers. What sort of guests are they?
My understanding is definitely they will be younger people. Because they are far more healthier, and the other thing will be repeating traveler, like experienced traveler. They will definitely go somewhere under such circumstances. They definitely will willing to go somewhere they're familiar with.
Thanks, Bill. I mean, what do you think? What can hotels actually? I mean, what can hotels do to cater to this younger demographic?
I mean, hotels need to get about, again, they've got to look at the social space. That's why we're talking about digital messaging. I mean, it's important to understand the Chinese traveler that, you know, they're already booking things in Thailand. You know, they're using the Alibaba platform for Taobao. Taobao, you can book drivers in Thailand. You can book also photo shoots. You see the wedding shoots of Chinese. These guys are booking direct already. So I think, you know, with Fliggy, you're talking about hotel experience. I think you got to engage travelers and promote your brands direct in these social media aspect and go directly to the customers. I think what you can do now is start building that loyalty or building, because as Vanessa said, people will travel to known destinations first. They're pioneers, but they're pioneers with a fear factor installed. So they will return to Thailand on that basis because they know Thailand, but you can start engaging them now through social media. Social media is fast to market. Digital is fast to market. It's by far the best channel.
Okay, we are running out of time, guys. In fact, we're over time. Has anybody got a closing remark, Bill?
I think we've got a final comment today, because we talk about the big bounce. And I've got the one thing about the big bounce, and we're not being over optimistic. We're saying there can be a little bounce, okay, or there can be a big bounce, right? Okay. One thing we know for sure is that people will return to Thailand and that Chinese will travel abroad. These are knowns. And I think it's a matter of if. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But it's time to start planning and using the digital stream. You know, that makes the most sense. Maybe Vanessa, do you have anything to say?
Yes. Yes. I mean, I'm looking forward to this day coming very, very soon, because even for myself, I just cannot wait just to jump on a flight and then come out.
Okay.
That's
David,
great. Thank you. We've got be the ball. Thanks very much, Bill. We've got a total of 37 questions that we've not answered yet, and they're still coming through the chat. Thank you so much, everyone, for supporting. Hope it's been useful, and we'll make sure we get back to you all. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.